Yeah, this session is brought to you by Space Tech and Mentalist, whereby Space Tech is a tech community, is an open source tech community. It is diverse, uh, working remote, and mostly its members are in Kenya, Tanzania. We recently opened a chapter in Tanzania and mostly in Nigeria. We are moving to diverse into the part of the African part of it. Then for mentalist is a platform that you're building inside Space Tech. Is a one-on-one platform that enables you to interact with a mentor or anyone who is a mentor or mentee. That is a one-on-one session, and even getting up into a masterclass part of it. The platform is still in development, and you are yet to launch it very soon. I'll share on the description on the chat on how to join the waitlist to get updates of how the how the development on each stage of launch is in progress. So today's session we are going to tackle about mental health awareness. Yeah, it is known that mental health is a kind of thing that is being tackled by or being undertaken by suffered by anyone, and anyone can able to pass through the same thing. So our speakers today are going to have Yvette Shayla, who is going to introduce herself. Then also going to have Daniel Cecil, who is going to join us in the session. So Shayla is a physiological counselor from Hopewell Farm, if I'm not wrong. It's going to tackle the topic tips of managing time and workload to prevent burnout. So, as I welcome Sheila, welcome. You can introduce yourself as you take over the session. Then, just for the some tips and guide for the session, if you've got a question, you can raise your hand or put it on the chat. I'll make a follow up on it with the speaker. So, Sheila, thank you. Welcome for the session.
Hi, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I'm very welcomed into this particular session that you're having today. And as they said, my name is Sheila Hubert. I'm a psychological counselor at Hopewell Farm. Our offices are located in Eldoret, but we do a lot of our counselings online. So if any one of you is interested for counseling, you can just find us on Google. Yes, you can Google us and you'll find us, and you can be able to book your sessions, and you can be able to get a therapist who's going to help you. So, as they have said, today we're going to be looking at some of the tips to manage time, to manage workload, and even just to manage burnout. In short, we're just going to be looking at work life balance, and I will be breaking it down into time management, into workload management, and also just how to manage burnout, because there's some who already have that burnout. So we're going to be looking at, now that I have burnout, how am I going to manage that burnout? And that's what we're going to be doing today. Does anyone have a question before we just get into it, or any comment, or anyone who wants to introduce themselves, like the other speaker, before we start? Okay, I'll take that as no one. If there's any question, please raise your hand or you can comment on the chat box. So we're going to start with tips on how to manage time. And here we're looking at in terms of workplace, in terms of where you're working. And yeah, some of the tips can also just be even in terms of like surrounding when it isn't like work, maybe we could say at home, maybe we want to get things done at home, but majorly we'll be focusing on, on how to manage time, especially in your workplace. And the first one is going to be being active. So like being active in terms of your work days or your work periods, you become active. And here, when you're talking about being active, you're talking about always doing something. So in terms of when you're getting in into work, like if it's 8 o'clock, if it's 7 o'clock, until the time you're getting off, you are always active and you're always doing something by the hour. And you're not waiting for last minute rushes to do something, or to just finish up on deadlines. So being active also helps you finish up, manage your time in terms of this is what I'm supposed to be doing in this particular time. This is what I'm like. If it is getting off at 5, you're doing the 9 to 5. At this particular time, I'm supposed to be getting off. It also helps in terms of reducing um, overworking yourself, and the after hours, if especially if you're not being paid for working overtime. So even the overtime sometimes becomes non-existent because you've been active through the whole work period that you have been in. Then the other thing that can help in time management could be setting goals in terms of, by the end of today, I'm going to be able to finish these particular tasks. And being active and setting goals go hand in hand. So you can't really do number one, that is being active, without setting up goals. Because being active, it talks about always doing something, and setting goals. To be able to be active, you have to set goals. That is number two. And here, so setting goals helps you becoming active and finishing up on the goals that you have set. Yeah, the two go hand in hand. Then the third one we can talk about is prioritizing action. What do you mean by prioritizing action? Here, you write down a list of tasks that you have to do, and then you write them in order of importance and difficulty. So if a task is very important that needs to be completed, it comes on top of your list. So you are prioritizing it, it comes there at the top. Or if it is very difficult that you'll need a time for you to concentrate, and maybe when you get into work is when you are concentrating more, it comes at the top of your list. So the difficult and important tasks that you have to do come at the top of your list, then going downwards into the much easier tasks that won't take a lot of your mental energy to concentrate on them. That is what we mean by prioritizing actions. Then the next one you're going to talk about is keep your focus. So you're keeping your focus in terms of the tasks that you are doing. When now you have prioritized action or prioritized task, and you want to now concentrate on that particular task that you have chosen for that particular hour or that particular time. So you keep your focus. Here you're focusing on the task without or limiting distractions. So especially when you get distracted with people talking or social media, you limit yourself with access to those particular things that distract you when you want to concentrate on a particular task. So you are limiting distractions. Then the next one you're going to go on to in under time management is going to be creating realistic deadlines. Here, it requires you to be also realistic with yourself and also realistic with how this task is going to go. You know very well that a particular task is going to take a lot more energy to be able to be completed, and you're pushing back that task until maybe the last hour or maybe the last day, talking of, oh, I will be done with it, or I know I can finish it, but you know realistically that this is very hard. You can't really do this in one day. You need a lot of weeks so that you can give, or you can do the task to your utmost like output so that it can be perfect the way you want it. So you are creating realistic deadlines for each and everything that you are doing. Here you are being real, as I've said, like how long a particular task is going to take and how long it's going to take you to complete it. You're being realistic with your deadlines. Then the last one in time management, we can talk about like we have this method, it's called the do it now. Like the do it now, it has a lot of breakdown, but you're going to do it a little simpler, and then we're going to talk about the 1 2 3 method, and it's also there. So this do it now mostly is with people who procrastinate a lot. They procrastinate on a task that's supposed to be doing. Even in work, they're procrastinating and really not doing the task that they're supposed to do. So the do it now principle is once you decide to focus on something, just do it now. As I've said, we're going to talk about the 1 2 3 method uh, that also adds on to more on the do it now. So as I said, when you are ready to do a particular task or you're focusing on doing a particular task, you just do it. You just wake up and do it. And here's when now we introduce the 1 2 3 method. So when you're procrastinating and you know at this particular time I'm supposed to be doing a particular task, with the do it now or even the 1 2 3, you just count from 1 to 3 or 3 to 1, whichever you would like, and it could be out loud, it could be in your mind, and just do whatever that task that you wanted to do. So yeah, so you can set like the 1 2 3 method. This is how it works. You set your alarm to a new start of your day, and then you don't hit the snooze button. Like, let's say it's getting out of bed and you want to hit the snooze button, just count mentally 1 2 3 or 3 to 1 and just wake up from your bed and do or go wherever you want to go and do whatever you want to do. And that is all I have on time management. Unless there's someone who has a question on time management before we can move on to tips on how to manage workload. Yes,
There's a hand raised by Ayub.
yeah.
Hi, good evening.
Good
Yeah, good
Can
evening.
you
evening.
hear? So my question is, I watched certain tutorial talk about protected time and like kind of daily highlight, protected time and daily highlight. What is the impact of those two in regards to time management?
Okay, pardon, I'm not getting you well. So please, pardon so that I can get you well.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question is, I watched a certain tutorial to talk about protected time and daily highlights. According to you, do you think they have impact in terms of time management?
Protecting time and daily highlight.
Yeah.
So I think it can have an impact on time management, especially in terms of how strict are you with highlighting your time as you're doing a particular task in that highlighted time. So it just depends on how strict you're going to be with yourself, even with protected time. Especially with people I know who use protected time, and I highlighted our highlighted day is, yeah, a lot of being strict with yourself and a lot of punishment with yourself in terms of let's say you wanted to do a particular task so that you can go out and do this and this, but you haven't really done that time in that highlighted time that you wanted. So you won't go out to do whatever you wanted to do. So that can be some form of punishment. So it really goes hand in hand with strictness. How strict are you to really keep up with that? So yeah, it really works, but It really works, but it needs the strictness. That is honestly what I can say about that. Anyone who has any other question? Okay, I feel like we can go on to tips for managing workload. As we were saying, with time management, this is generally going to be focused especially in your workplaces. So let us go on to workload. With tips for managing workload, the first one we're going to talk about is taking regular breaks. And this is something that I always tell a lot of my clients, to take breaks, to take leaves, and just taking vacations where it is just you focusing on yourself, reconnecting with yourself, and just not doing anything, not thinking much about anything. And here it helps you retain productivity and even the output that you had, especially when maybe you joined the company, and even right now that you have been in the company for such a long time. So it helps retain productivity. Taking regular breaks, it is not bad and it is not a sin, especially. Yeah, maybe you'll get names for, maybe people will start teasing you and talking about how your work is much easier. You can take regular breaks. Some of them are just like working on even time. You get there's some who have never even taken their leave days in a year. So it is not something to be ashamed of to take breaks, because you know you want to retain your productivity and your output. So taking regular breaks really help reduce the amount of workload that you put on yourself. Then the next tip is going to be splitting tasks into subtasks. And when we talk about splitting task, is taking a huge task and then breaking it down into a significant task, into something that is more manageable for you, rather than tackling a whole task by itself and doing it once, and then you don't really do it to perfection. You break it down into doing smaller section perfectly, and then the output, or at the end of you finishing that particular task, is okay. We can use an example of, maybe you have a project, you're writing a proposal, and yeah, or you're doing a report. Rather than doing the report all at once, maybe you can split it, or you can split the project, doing the proposal first and then doing the research at the end. So it really helps in breaking down the task, or just reducing the amount of workload that you're putting on yourself. Then the next tip is going to be limiting your multitasking. You're limiting it. As much as maybe you know you're good in multitasking, but you're limiting the amount of times you're doing multitasking. Every day you're multitasking. You're doing a lot of things at the same time. So as much as you know I can multitask, you limit it to a number of days you're doing multitasking. Maybe in a week you can multitask maybe twice in a week. And then and then the next week maybe not multitasking, because multitasking can prevent you from working effectively, because your mind will be concentrated on something else, then your mind is concentrated on something else. So you're not really thinking um, a lot, or thinking about a particular task very deeply. So, and this is something that you're doing it every day regularly, so it won't really help you work effectively. So, limiting multitasking can really help in reducing workload. Then the next is just knowing your limits in terms of when you're working, knowing your limits. When we're talking about knowing your limits, here you spend time getting to know your unique strengths in terms of work, and also understanding your own limits. At what point, or do you know at which particular task, do you know when given you can't really do it to how someone would want it? So just knowing your limits and also knowing your unique strengths in terms of this is a particular task that I know I can do very perfectly, can also help you reducing workload and even the stress that comes with particular tasks that you are assigned. Any question? Um, any question before we continue? Okay, so I can see no questions, and we're going to go to the last point on tips on how to manage workload. So answering emails is something that a lot of us really do, especially when we're at when we are working. And some mistake that we do in terms of answering emails is you are finished for the day from work, you're out of the office, you are at home, the time that you are supposed to be resting, and then you now start looking at emails, and now even thinking about the responses that you're going to make and how to answer them. That is workload, because you are at home, this is time for you to be resting, and you are looking at work emails and answering work emails. So something with emails is allocating time to check emails can help really manage workload. And what are we talking about when we say allocating time? So during downtime, um, like you're scheduling a time during your work day to answer emails. This could be maybe on a slow day, there's nothing much to do, or maybe let us use the example of in the afternoon after lunch, especially. So you're just from eating, your mind hasn't really been thinking about work a lot, and after that you don't really have the mood to go into straight back into work. So you can use that particular time to answer emails. Hence, not going back home again, opening your emails, looking at emails, thinking of how you're going to respond to that particular emails. And with that, I feel we can move on to burnout. So here is maybe especially for people who already have burnout. With workload and time management can help reduce your chances of getting burnout. And now when we're talking of burnout, maybe people who have already burnout, or just how to help even your friends and yourself manage burnout. And what do we mean when we're talking about burnout? Burnout is mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion, especially coming from work. Burnout especially affects people from the helping industry, like nurses, doctors, even therapists and psychologists. So mostly people from the helping profession, and even just other people in other professionals, but mostly people from the helping profession. um, and how can you reduce burnout? A way you can reduce burnout, because burnout and stress are linked. A way that you can reduce burnout or just manage burnout is by the simplest is by reaching out to others. So this is what I like asking my clients if they have a friend who they know they can rant to. I call it ranting, but this is just like talking. You talk to others. So what do we mean when we reach out to others? Social contact is a natural antidote to stress. As I said, stress and burnout are linked. So, social contact is a natural antidote to stress. Talking to a good listener face to face if the is the fastest way to calm your nerves. So, you have to have like a good listener who's also going to be responding to some of the rants that you're going to be having, maybe about work, maybe about your colleagues and everything. So this can really help in reducing the amount of stress and even the feelings of burnout that you are having. It can calm your nerves and feel like you have let out steam. Then the next tip is going to be reframing the way you look at work, and even just the way you think of work. So you find some value in your work, and you find a balance in your life. When we talk about finding some value in your work, You look at that as the work that I'm doing is helping others in this particular way. So you're finding a bit of value in the work that you are doing. And then, what do I mean when I say finding balance in your life? Um, Here, you look for satisfaction elsewhere in your life. Here, it could be maybe on the weekends, you go hang out with your friends. It can really help in reframing the way you are looking at work. Um, then, the next tip that we are going to be talking about is going to be reevaluating your priorities. What do we mean by reevaluating your priorities? Sorry. Here we're talking about taking time to think about your hopes, your goals, and your dreams. Like what actually made you go into that working profession, the hopes that you want to achieve when you're working, the goals that you want to achieve when you're working, and even the dreams that you want to have or just conquer like after. So reevaluating your priorities can really help with managing burnout. Then I think the last and the most recommended that we use for burnout and even stress and even sometimes breakups, because therapists will like using this a lot, this method a lot, is making exercise a priority. So here is working out. And I think if you've gone into therapy, especially for stress or breakups, you'll hear a lot of people or a lot of therapists telling you to go and work out. So because you have a lot of pent up emotions, and working out can help you release some of that emotion. So, uh, working out is an antidote for stress and burnout because you maximizes stress relief, and instead of you continuing to focus on your thoughts. So it is very good. It is a very fast way or a good way for maximizing stress relief, and you relieve a lot of stress thinking about all those weights that you're lifting, or yeah, or the running that you're doing. You'll be exhausted, and even your mind won't be really thinking about what was bringing up those that burnout or that stress that was on in your body. You feel more relaxed, and with even with exhaustion, you can go and sleep well, not thinking about um, what was causing you a lot of stress. Yeah, so that is what I had for today in terms of tips for managing time, workload, and burnout. Does anybody have a question?
Yeah, but before Mayeka, you can go on. Maybe Sheila, you can tackle what Susan has said that how can one cope up with working in a toxic workplace?
Okay, Susan, working in a toxic workplace. Um, Honestly, with even burnout, the first thing that happens, especially when you're in a toxic workplace, is quitting your job and looking for another place that you can work. But I know most of us, we do not have that the royalties to do that, because we know the struggles of looking for a new place to work and just looking for a job, especially with this country, or should I say, like how the country is and how just job seeking is very hard and very difficult and very stressful. And I could say some of the tips in working or coping in a toxic workplace is limiting your interactions with the people who are bringing a lot of toxicity, and also just reminding yourself that this is a workplace. You're not here to make friends, because if it was your friends being toxic, that could be another thing. But this is a workplace. These are not your friends. So limiting unnecessary unnecessary involvement that you have with the people who are very bringing toxicity into that particular workplace can really help in that. And also when you reach home, leaving whatever it is at work being at work, and not even also bringing it also to your home or to your house when you're sleeping at night, because it's going to give you a lot of sleepless nights. And also just practicing step number one that we talked about in burnout, that is reaching out to others and just ranting. A good rant can really help. Yeah, so yeah, let us look at the question from Mayeka.
Yes, hello. Uh, so mine is about patience.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, for example, actually, someone is in campus.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes actually inafika place yenye you feel like shule tuishe so that you go into the job place.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we ensure that we are patient enough, like to finish all the semesters, like all the years before we get into the job? And then also I'm asking about patience concerning learning, because sometimes maybe you get that maybe you want to get into a certain field, let's say machine learning or artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
But now, of course, maybe you're supposed to learn some modules, and you know that maybe this thing is supposed to take something like 4 months or 5 months, sometimes even up to some courses can take even 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you ensure that you're patient enough? Because sometimes we feel like we could finish this within maybe 2 weeks, but it's not possible. And then you try to hurry it up, and then after some time, maybe you kind of give up because you feel like time is like things are not moving as fast as you want them to move. And then my third question on patience,
Mm-hmm.
like how do we ensure also that you are patient enough, like to focus on the right things at the right time? Because sometimes you get that maybe some things aren't really a priority, and then you feel like think let's say something like a relationship. Sometimes it's not necessary. Maybe let's say at the age of let me not choose the age, but let me use campus. Sometimes it's not that necessary, but then you feel like how do you ensure that you're patient enough until like you're stable maybe before you can get into a relationship? Yeah, that's my question. Back to you.
Okay, so with patients in general, especially when I'm hearing some of your examples with I think it's 3 or 4 questions that you have asked. A, a lot of them are dealing with patients to get into a job, patients to finish campus, patients to like get a certain module finished. And I think reevaluating your priorities can work best there. Here is taking time to think of, why am I studying this much to do this particular thing? So the patience here can apply with that. So what goal am I trying to achieve that I'm studying this much? Can really help to clear up the path of, yeah, this is taking a lot of time, but this is what I'm going to get at the end of this particular road. So you are looking at your goals that you want to achieve. You're looking at the dreams that you've been having. This is the reason why I joined campus, to do this, and particular this. And also with school, it could be what I like saying is, you apply or look at the positions that the position that you particularly want. As you've said, the AI and everything. I really don't know much about that. I'm very sorry. Excuse me. Okay, so maybe at that particular job that you want, or that particular industry that you want, I always tell people to look, you search for that particular job and see, like, are you really, if you leave school now, are you really qualified to get that particular job and that time? So even your goals, and then it can become some form of a goal or even just a dream to be at that particular place that you want or that particular person that you admire can really help you to have the patience and the consistency to do whatever you are doing. Whatever is giving you a really hard time in being patient can really help with, like with that, just reevaluating your priorities. What is my priority right now? And even just in terms of the choices that you have to make, even with the last question that you have asked, what is your priority at that particular time? If I do this, will I is there some form of consequence that I'm going to be facing, and how am I going to handle that? So just evaluating and just knowing what are my priorities can really help in that particular setup that you have. I'm seeing a question from Mamba. I'm seeing a question from Mamba, and it's talking of what of imposter syndrome. Is it is it considered a mental health issue, and how can you cope with it? So, imposter syndrome, I hope everyone here knows the imposter syndrome. If not, I can just talk a bit on what is imposter syndrome. So, this is a condition where you feel anxious and not experiencing success internally despite being high performance and ex- sorry, let us start. So, imposter syndrome is a condition where you're feeling anxious and not experiencing success internally, despite being high performing in external and objective ways. So, here within yourself, you're not feeling like you are achieving more, but outside, you're really working hard to achieve that more that you want. Where, if we put it maybe in layman's language, so that is what imposter syndrome basically means. And with imposter syndrome, I would recommend taking breaks and re-evaluating yourself, and just reorganizing yourself and knowing yourself, because imposter syndrome especially hits when you've worked maybe even 6 months, 1 year plus going into a particular job. That is when imposter syndrome works, especially if you're that particular person. Maybe in a year you got 2 promotions and everything, or you've been bagging big deals, and then it reached a point where 6 months going, you haven't really bagged a deal, you haven't really gotten a promotion. The imposter syndrome starts to kick in. So I would recommend taking a much needed vacation into knowing more about yourself, just reevaluating yourself, and also just knowing like what is the type of output that is going to help me feel like I'm succeeding and getting more. And also just getting feedback from your colleagues, from your supervisors in terms of the work that you are doing, because you might be feeling like you have been working hard externally, or you have been really working hard to get that success, and maybe you haven't really been doing anything, you have been doing the same thing, or just going even down under. So getting a lot of feedback, especially in how you're tackling work or how you're doing, can really help. So you need conquer or coping with that imposter syndrome. Yeah, anyone who has a feedback or a comment on how we can cope, or you have been coping with imposter syndrome. Okay, I feel like there is no question. Anyone who has any other question in terms of what we have talked about, or anything mental health related in terms of work?
Mayaka, do you still have a question?
Uh, I don't have any. Let me put the hand down.
Maybe my question goes to come up to Sheila. Maybe there's a time you have got a heavy workload and with tight deadlines. What are
Mm-hmm.
some of the healthy mechanism or stress management part of it techniques you can suggest for someone to cope up with the same?
So they have heavy workload and they have a particular deadline.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So depending on how you've gotten that workload is like evaluating, is this something that you have brought on to yourself, or is this something that maybe you're given, maybe work, let's say let's say you're given maybe a little time to complete that particular work. So it really depends on how the situation is, but this is how I can suggest someone to handle the amount of stress that come with that. Taking relaxation techniques or doing a relaxation techniques can really help to maybe relax you and just even calm yourself down before you now start tackling that particular work. So when I'm talking of relaxation techniques, is breathing in through your nose, hold it maybe for 5 seconds, and then slowly breathing out with, I think it's the mouth, yeah, with the mouth. And then yeah, breathing like the breathing until you feel like your nerves have really calmed down, then now focusing on the task, looking at the task and seeing what is the difficulty of this particular task that you have been given, and then you now break that task into small achievable tasks. At what you can start maybe with the difficult parts of that particular task or that workload that you have, and concentrating more on that task, and then when you finish it, maybe going on to the easier parts. And also, as you're doing that or breaking down the task into more manageable steps, you can also look at how far or how long do I have to take this particular task. And also, just in terms of you knowing your strengths and you knowing your limits, you can say, oh, I will take, maybe you have to submit the task by 6 o'clock and it is currently maybe 2 o'clock. So you can maybe say for about 2 hours I'm going to do this particular side of this task, and then the rest of the hour we're going to be going systematically until to maybe the end of that particular task. You could do that, or you could do it anyhow you feel like it's going to make that particular work easier, prioritizing that by the end, by this particular time I'm going to be done. At this particular time I'm going to be finished with this particular area of the task, and maybe help reduce that particular workload. Okay, so does anyone have, okay, I'm seeing a question on the chat. um I know many tense up when stressed. Would saving some time in the day for a progressive muscle relaxation help? um yes, it can help. Cause yeah, yes, it can help. It's like the relaxation technique that I've been talking about. I was talking about the breathing exercises because this is something that someone can just do on the desk, not moving around. But setting up time to help your muscles relax can really help into like getting back into that mood of working. So even with breathing exercises, stretching can be a way to relax your muscles, especially the places where you feel a lot of that the muscles are tense. Those that could be the neck, the back, maybe even the waist. Um, Relaxing those muscles can really help in terms of relieving stress, and even just like helping you relax and in in terms of that. So that is a very good comment from Sarah.
My other question could come, talking of workload and personal life. How can one establish the boundaries between the same to come up with a healthy lifestyle balance?
So this is work life balance.
Yes.
So when we're talking about how to reduce workload and also just maintaining your lifestyle, this is work-life balance. I have been emphasizing a lot on taking breaks. Let us call them leave. Rather than breaks, let us call them leaves. Taking regular leaves. And this can really help in terms of how you're managing your work, and you're also using that particular time that the company or the firm that you're working in has given you to take a leave and just taking a breather. Then the overtime, working overtime or coming to work early can really can really help on how you're managing your work life balance. So, reducing the amount of time you're working overtime. And here comes with time management, making sure that whatever task of the day that you had to do, you're using it in that particular time. If it is 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 that you're supposed to be working, you're using your 8 to 5 to work in order for that overtime to not exist. This does not even really matter if you're being paid to work overtime. We are looking here at your work life balance. How can you manage your work life balance? So reducing the amount of time you work overtime. And when it is weekend, it is strictly weekend. You're not really, it is weekend, but you're answering emails. It is weekend, but you're doing one or two projects. If it is weekend, take that time to actually relax your mind, relax your body, and really enjoy the activities that you like to do, rather than in the morning, maybe it is Saturday morning, you're not working Saturday morning, and then you're like, oh, I had this email, let me just reply to it quickly, and then I can do this and this at the rest of the day. No, weekend is strictly weekend. And even when you go for holidays, switching off that your phone, if it is work phone or everything, just switching it off, and everybody knowing that at this particular time so and so cannot be reached. So that can really help in how you're going to manage your work life balance. The other thing is not carrying work and coming with it at home. So maybe even you want to relax with your partner, but you can't really relax with your partner, or can't really even just talk with the partner because you've come home with your work and you're doing work from home. So even your relationships can't really become that stable, or yeah, because you're not even really having that communication. When you come back home, you've worked overtime, you're tired, you're just going straight to bed. You're not having that time, or you're not even spending a lot of time with that partner. So yeah, so I think that can really help in regulating or just working the work life balance and just balancing it, and also reduce the amount of stress that comes with those two. Also, in work life balance, what can also help is not bringing the stress or the issue or the anger or maybe the feelings, let us say the feelings that you get from one particular side and bring it to the other. What I'm talking about is maybe a coworker has angered you, made you angry, and you're still angry. And then when you come home, you bring that anger and the frustration to your partner. So this has left work and has come to life. It has come to your own personal life. Or sometimes it could be vice versa. You have been arguing with your partner or with your parent or whoever, and then you're still angry or still frustrated and come to work with how angry you are. So even a coworker is asking you a question and you're angry and you're making rude comments, or you're answering back the way you want and everything. So that can also ruin the work life balance that you are having. Anyone who has a tip on how you can also manage work life?
Uh, Maybe before someone else come in, you're talking about being angry, part of it. Then my question could come in a state whereby how can one do have an effective communication to either the superior or the teammate in terms of work balance or the workload, or without being feeling the guilt part of it, or feeling without making the limit to the team or the superior or even the teammates part of it.
Okay, so could you please repeat your question?
Talking of your anger in part of it, then
Mm-hmm.
there is this part of how can one do the effective communication to a team or a superior in terms of the workload, managing a workload without feeling the guilt part of it.
Mm-hmm. Um, what manifests guilt? Does what manifests guilt in terms of whatever conversation you're going to be having with your superior, with every, with with your superior or with your colleague, is knowing what is manifesting your guilt, or what is going to make you guilty, and tackling that. Is it you're not really going to do that work that they're going to do, or you haven't even been doing that particular work, or not going to do it, or just knowing like what is going to manifest your guilt when you're going to be having that particular conversation with your superior or with your colleague, and then just knowing better ways on how to communicate what you want across, writing down the particular points that you want to be taken across, or just to talk about, and also regulating your feelings and knowing how you're going to communicate with this. Are you going to be aggressive about it, or are you going to be level headed and also see the other side of that particular person? Are you going to compromise when you're having that particular conversation, or are you going to let your point be known across? So it really depends on what is manifesting that particular guilt that you are having, especially when you're talking with your superior. With your colleagues, I think you can level with them, but with a superior is like an authority that you can't really oppose. So what is manifesting that particular guilt? How can you manage, or how can you stop feeling that guilt, or manage that particular guilt that you are feeling? And then writing down the points you want to be that you want to give or talk about, or you want to be noted, and then regulating your emotions that you're going to have, or that you feel are going to come up when you're having that particular conversation with your superior. So that can really help in terms of communication, and even communicating in terms of work life balance, and also just getting to know why is your superior giving you that particular workload. Maybe the superior is confident in terms of your ability to do work, maybe even your ability when you're pushed into a corner, maybe your ability in terms of how you pick up things fast, or just how you do things fast. Also, just knowing in terms of what is the situation, or what is the mindset that your superior has when they're giving you that particular work. Yeah.
Yeah, my other question, you first, as you introduced the session, you talked about burnout. So, what are these signs one can check of the burnout so that they cannot escalate for a period of time, to prevent them from escalating a period?
Okay, so we are talking about signs and symptoms of burnout. So, how can we know, or how can we know that you are starting to experience burnout, and you would like to now start tackling that before it becomes maybe a serious issue? And with burnout, um, burnout is actually pretty bad because burnout can lead to death. You feel like, yeah, can lead to like the suicide cases that we have, and yeah, so death in general. So, how do you know that you are burnout? Sorry, stopping. So, how can you know that you are burnout? So, when you start feeling, or when you like start feeling that you doubt yourself, you have that self doubt, or you have like that sense of failure within yourself, that is a way for you to know that you are now starting to experience burnout. Or maybe you're feeling helpless, you're feeling trapped, you're feeling defeated. You can feel like, now you feel like you're just going along and moving along with how the wave is going. Is a way to know that you are having burnout. Sometimes you detach yourself and you feel like you are alone in the world, and no one is there on your side, no one is there to help you. That is also a way to know that you're experiencing burnout. And then you lack motivation, especially in work. The motivation is gone. Um, you have like an increased negative outlook on everything. That is also a way to know that you're experiencing burnout. And then you also have decreased satisfaction and a sense of accomplishment. So even here goes hand in hand with the imposter syndrome. So you feel less satisfied with the work that you're doing. You don't feel any accomplishment in what you're doing. That is also a way that you can know you're experiencing burnout.
Any other question from the audience? Yeah, if there is no other question, sorry, my other speaker was not able to join it, to join the session. I had traveling issues. He had some locomotive issues that he's sorting about out on the end. So on my end, I could like to thank you, Shayla, for having this session coming up to tackle up the session today. Then for the audience, just as I said, this session is brought to you by Tech and Mentalist. Uh, you can join the whitelist by joining the URL on the chat. I'm just putting it on the chat. So as I said, Mentalist is just a one-on-one platform, that a platform that will give you a one-on-one mentorship session, whereby you can able to book a session with somebody like Shayla for a counseling session on the platform. Not only from the health part of it, but also you're trying to bring it tech stacks part of it, being the tech community. Just as before we close up, we can also Sheila, you can also introduce where you do, then how people can able to find you. Then we can close up the session today.
Okay, so you can find me on Twitter at Shayla Yuvet. You can find me on LinkedIn at Shayla Yuvet, and you can find our counseling firm in every platform as Hopewell Counseling Firm, and even on Google, and you can also be able to book appointment with us. I'm very glad that I was invited to this particular space to talk about burnout, workload, and also time management and stress in general. Because I think we've touched a bit on stress, and I really hope that this or whatever I've just said is going to be helpful in your daily life.
Okay, so I think Juma is having some connection issues. I think we can end we can end this session from this point. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you, Sheila, for the session. It was quite. I dropped out. I joined, but at least we got something from this session. So thank you guys for joining. Maybe we'll organize for more sessions similar to this soon enough. Thank you guys.